I'm the doctor. This is Raz. This is Dan.
No way.
Hiya. You're hiding something. Get inside!
Whoa.
Let's go to season 13 and the specials because it's pretty much the same. Now, I tend to be a bit more lenient on Flux because, first of all, I think it's a big idea. And it was sort of made, I believe it was still made with the restrictions of COVID. So this is not as long as he wanted to make it. I wouldn't mind if at some point Chibnall found his way to Big Finish or wrote a novel on, fleshing it out. Like if Russell and Steven can do it for Rose and Dead Doctor and basically write an entirely different story, Chibs can do it too. When I think about the Flux story, Azure and Swarm, I think, are interesting ideas. Tying it into the Fugitive Doctor, because of course you would. The idea this huge event happens, the Santarans are still here. We've got characters like Vinder and Unit comes back. There's a lot going on here, and if there's one thing I would like to sit Chibnall down, I would have liked to have heard what his original plan for this was. In all fairness to him, because it had to suck to really have to be constrained like this. So I don't know, but there are things I do like. Actually, the best thing I like about this is Professor Jericho.
Oh yeah,
Professor Jericho stole the show. All right. He was the best part of Village of the Angels. I don't care what anyone says. When he points that angel, you stay right there. I'm like, oh, he just became the Doctor. Like, I'm sorry, it happened. And Village of the Angels, I think, is a fine Weeping Angel story. It may be my bias. My favorite Weeping Angel story is still Time of the Angels and Flesh and Stone. I think Blink is a bit overrated just because everyone talks about it. It's like Genesis of the Daleks. It's a good story, but the more you shove it down my throat that it's good, I just don't care about it anymore. Which is also why I try not to talk about the American Conspiracy and Live 34 too much. Again, these are good ideas. We introduced the character Dan. The Lupari come in. I don't hate the Lupari. I think it's a bit weird. They're like bonded to humans, but I get it. A man and his dog, a bit on the nose, but whatevs. War of the Sontaran is not a bad Sontaran story in itself. The chocolate thing was stupid. But I'm not going to blame Chibnall for that. Oh, I think hell just froze over. I didn't blame Chibnall for something. That I will say is a Moffat problem. Moffat kind of, with as much as I love Strax, he's made Strax and Sontarans a bit of a joke. Survivors of the Flux needed work. The idea that all these points come together is ridiculous. And of course, we get to finally meet Tecteun, because this whole thing is about the Doctor trying to investigate the future, who she was, and she meets Carvanista, remember the Lupari, and I get it, but we've made a very big mistake here in my mind, and is that Azure and Swarm know the Doctor, the Fugitive Doctor. This was a mission by division, and it feels like these stories don't properly connect. Should the Flux have been created by Azure and Swarm as opposed to division wanting to reset the universe and blaming the Doctor? Also, Tecteun effectively still comes out of nowhere here, because the problem with Tecteun, ignoring everything Chris said, which I'm not disagreeing with, but ignoring that, this meeting means nothing to these two characters. It means Tecteun does not care about the Doctor, which I think is a bit sad, but the Doctor has no memory of Tecteun. All right, it's like, this is your abuser. You don't know your abuser. You have no memories of being abused. All right, and you like, this is supposed to be like, people's like, well, she treats her like she's her mom, but they don't have a relationship. You don't remember. She doesn't care. Also, this is Division. Division's big plan is destroying the universe. How are you worse at this than Rassilon? Like, the plan is for the Time Lords to survive. It's, well, we all gotta go. the Weeping Angels work for the Time Lords? Well, not the worst idea for the Weeping Angels, but it's still not a good one. It's not. There are a lot of really. I'm sorry, like Time Lords or Weeping Angels. I still don't get that. That's what they became for the Time War. They became what? I mean, sure, I can believe there's a connection to Weeping Angels and Time Lords. If you were to say they existed in another universe where the Time Lords became, when the Weeping Angels were the Time Lords, or something like that, or whatever. But the idea that they work for time, like the Weeping Angels are built to be ridiculously powerful, and there's been no real counter to Weeping Angels. It's just sort of, well, I was able to trick them into looking at each other, but at some point they're going to get out of that.
Yeah.
Just them waking up, they had to fall through a crack in the universe. They had to create like a massive paradox to make it so the Doctor can never go back to New York, which, you know, New York is kind of terrible. So Doctor's not missing out. I don't get that. I don't get this story. We've separated the Doctor from the fam again. Oh, I'm sorry, the fam's gone. We totally forgot. Ryan and Graham decided to leave. They're off to better and safer things. We'll see Graham again later.
Yeah.
Yaz is going to sort of really realize she has a crush on the Doctor. New character Dan will sort of be the middleweight for that. Like, hey, you like her? You like her, don't you? Like, oh, okay. And this did lead to the discussion of is Thasmin queer baiting? There was a really great video on it. I liked it because and you might like it if I'll send it to you if you want, where one guy plays effectively Trial of a Time Lord. He plays the Doctor, a Doctor-esque character and a Valyard-esque character, making the case to Madam Inquisitor. And he uses clips, like scenes of Inquisitor Darkle, for some of the back and forth to make the case why Thasmin both is and isn't queer baiting. It's a really thought out video. But at the end of this all, focusing on just Flux alone, I appreciate the scope. I appreciate when Doctor Who goes big. This was almost a very good, glorious train wreck of a story. But we've got too many characters, too many restrictions. Chibs, I want to see the original blueprint. I want to. I've been waiting to see if you can finally talk about it. Go live, Chibs. Go live. All right. Talk about just like clips, like little plans. You're like, this is the original plan for Vinda and his girlfriend and whatnot, who the baby was supposed to be and what Flux was actually going to be, how it all comes together. He doesn't get to do that. As I said before, that has to suck. Yeah. I would like to see him do that again. But when I see Flux, I see we didn't need the Thomas Child. We could have really gone with the idea that Azure and Swarm are that big a threat that the division has no choice but to try to wipe it out, or that Azure and Swarm can activate the Flux. Because they never quite explain what Azure and Swarm are. Are they gods? The Doctor's defeated gods before. There's moments where the Doctor has to goes through her memories and becomes the fugitive Doctor, but at the same time, like, nothing about this seems inherently special. Like, I'll say this again in Power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker is a good actress. I think people say she isn't is just sort of projecting a bit much. Like, no, you're making a bit too harsh. She's a good actress. Maybe comedy isn't her exact strong suit. Drama is. But a lot of actors, I think, do like a chance to explore their performance. And really all she does is sort of explore moving along the same line as a fugitive Doctor. And I don't think that works. But again, I feel like I can't be too unfair to this. And, well, I'll finish it with Power of the Doctor, which is the epitome of we didn't let Jodie Whittaker be the Doctor. All right. And look, Sacha Dhawan is back. Apparently the whole Rasputin dance scene was not supposed to be that long. The scene where the Dalek and the Cybermen look at each other was apparently improvised, which whoever did that was brilliant.
Hmm.
Was brilliant. But the idea of the Master taking over the Doctor's body gives to me the same vibes of Mr. Clever in Nightmare in Silver.
Mhm.
You know, letting Matt Smith be evil in the 11th Doctor's body was brilliant because, again, you've let him show off his acting chops. Let Jodie play an evil Doctor. All right, Jodie pretend to be Jodie being the Master in the Doctor's body. Do it. It makes the whole Yaz fearing the Doctor, quote unquote, make more sense. Because if it doesn't look like the Doctor, why on earth would she think you're not the Doctor? Why would she think she's the Doctor? She knows it's not the Doctor. Make it be that, hey, even while looking like the Doctor, Yaz is so heartfelt for the Doctor, like, you're not her. Like, okay. And again, and this one hurts. But I'm gonna tell you how dedicated I am to wanting more Jodie Whittaker showing off. As much as I love Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred having that moment, as much as I love, the Fifth Doctor and Tegan talking about Adric, this could have easily been the 13th Doctor talking to both Ace and Tegan as herself. It was a wasted opportunity to really show up, because there was the Sarah Jane Adventures, when the 11th Doctor meets Sarah and Liz Shaw, and not Liz Shaw, Joe Grant. And you can tell Joe isn't quite sure that that's the Doctor. Like, it's a hard thing, like your first regeneration, especially when you saw like someone go from Pertwee to Matt Smith. It's weird, but they have a conversation, and she's putting herself down. I was like, why would you ever think that? And it's a great scene. She looks at him and goes, "It really is you." It's a great moment. Some people point out that he's moving a bit like Pertwee. I'm like, maybe. I'm not gonna call him to that one. But that scene was great. The same way that when Sarah Jane sees the 10th Doctor in School Reunion, that one scene of the TARDIS, a bit over the top dramatic, honestly. And he's just standing there in the lights. But it's a heartfelt moment, because the last time Sarah Jane saw the Doctor, Eldrad must live.
Yeah.
So it was a great emotional moment.
Yeah.
Ace, Tegan haven't seen the Doctor in years, and they both sell that performance of missing the Doctor, regretting how things ended between them. Again, we never quite know exactly canonically when Ace and the Doctor left, but if you know Ace and the 7th Doctor, there's a lot of drama between those two.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the 5th Doctor and Tegan, as I've said before, that ending between the two of them on the show is still one of my favorite, when she just walks out saying it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
All of that death, and she rightfully couldn't deal with it anymore. I like that. So to see them all reconnect, I felt was great, but I kept going, you could have given Jodie Whittaker the best send-off ever.
Yeah.
Have her show off those acting skills and have everyone go, you know what? We were cheated. She can do it. And granted, the fan base kind of accepted the scripts failed Jodie Whittaker. I think it was also Chibnall in part, but whatever. But yeah. And then it's got so bad David Tennant had to be the next incarnation. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, sense to add. Well, I think in certain ways, Flux is, I think, an emblem of what the Chibnall era became at the end. And in certain ways, I almost feel like that was all that it could do for a big setup to the send-off, which is just kind of a big, ambitious story that has it really is emblematic. Like I say, it presents the structure of the Chibnall era. It's a big, ambitious story that doesn't make sense, has no discernible or good structure, and drowns with it and collapses upon the weight of its exposition. I think that, and its editing is pretty bad too at places. I think that, but it also has some glimmers of great things, like Jericho, who's the only one that dies. So I think that it's almost as if it gives you something good, but it destroys it too. It's like the Chibnall era is its own vampiric presence. The thing it loves, it must destroy. The Flux is... It's very difficult to really, tell. If you were trying to do summations of the plots of each of these episodes, Flux is hard because it's all one big story and they're all happening at once. Even for what I remember watching the Halloween Apocalypse and being struck, realizing that it struck me, and I realized that this episode is not just going to take a step and then build and build and build and then reach a point and then reach a climax. All the steps are happening once because you see the Weeping Angels in the same episodes. The Sontarans right at the start. The Lupari are there. What's happening? None of this makes any sense. Swarm is there, then Azure. Why was Azure where she was? Kind of echoing almost where the Fugitive Doctor was. Who knows? Who cares? Why was Swarm locked up in a cage, but Azure was hidden as a human? Who knows? Who cares? You'll never know. Why is Division doing what it's doing? Why is Tecteun even? How is she still alive? And is Division only Tecteun, or at least these couple of people that got killed? Is they're existing outside the universe? That they always existed there? What's the point? What's their history? What have they been doing? Who knows? Who cares? But they exist. It's simply all these things are they're present so that the script requires them to be there, and they forward the plot, and that's it. If we are mentioning Tecteun, I did something, and I've mentioned this before. When Tecteun finally met up with the Doctor, and you're right, they have no history, because the fundamental flaw, I think, with the story is this is not some past Doctor event like it was in the we talk about the Master Plan and the McCoy era. These comparisons, McCoy would, if this were a McCoy story, he would remember what's happening. He'd be very mysterious. There would be a lot of double entendres, innuendo about, or at least references to things you don't understand, but the Doctor knows. Well, this time the Doctor doesn't know. And again, her agency's taken away. And her ability to function with the story is really severely limited because she doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't remember any of these things. Did these things even ever happen to her? She doesn't know. She doesn't remember. And therefore, she's just mouth gaping open while she's floating in space. Around the... during the third episode, which is probably one of the most surreal and hard to understand episodes, probably since Warrior's Gate. If people know about that late Tom Baker episode, but it's very surreal. A lot of interesting imagery, but you just don't know what's happening. And you're right that trying to connect her to that scene where she becomes the Fugitive Doctor, I don't know if it's a lack of acting ability or if it's just unclarity in the script. I have heard some things about the behind the scenes of Jodie Whittaker's time, which makes me a little more charitable in my belief, at least it leans me towards the idea that Jodie, from what I've heard, it makes me feel that my views have become tempered, thinking that maybe Jodie just simply didn't know what to do with the scripts because the scripts were so poorly written. I have heard some anecdotal evidence about this. But at the end of the day, it is a story that just shows you that it's trying to be all things at once. Like the Timeless Children, it's trying to be very big and massive and changing. But in being all things for once, it becomes almost nothing because everything's happening at once and everything's loud and fast. Why are there... I mean, it incorporates current events, the tunnels under Liverpool. Why are they there? I'm not sure. Why do they have temporal energy running through them? I'm not so sure. But they discovered the tunnels in 2021, so that we're around that time, so they had to include them. Well, did they really have to include them? If you're going to include a mysterious artifacts that exist, create a story that centers around them, not just simply have them be a mysterious artifact in a story that you don't, and that whose nature is unclear and unfocused. So it's a show that really I think it is again another emblem of where Doctor Who was at the time, which is that I think it had lost its identity. It wasn't sure if it was trying to be both traditional and radical. And traditional meaning bringing back lots of monsters and Gallifrey stuff, but radical and reinterpreting them with Division and the Fugitive Doctor and Tecteun. I'm surprised Rassilon didn't show up. But I think that it just shows where the series was, running around in circles, uncertain of what it is, of what it was, running faster and faster and faster, probably with the hope that so that it could outrun the inevitability that it doesn't know what it's really doing, that it doesn't really have a plan, that it really doesn't have an end point, that it doesn't have answers to the questions it's positing, And in the end, when the Doctor has the chance to find out, and perhaps this is a Doctor thing to do, I don't know, she drops the pocket watch into the bowels of the TARDIS and says, just forget it, and make sure I never find it. So you really are left kind of thinking, what was the point of this 6-part series if there is no answer given? And maybe that is the point, that it simply is happening. It exists. And maybe you're not meant to think about it. Maybe that's where Doctor Who is at that point, which is, well, if you turn off your brain, it's fun. But is it fun if even when turning off your brain, you can't understand it? You can't even feel your way through the story because you're not even sure what you're meant to feel because everything's happening at once. So, yeah, I can't answer your question about what Flux would have been. I can say that we know that it was at least supposed to be 8 episodes, but because of COVID, it was cut down. It's possible that one of those episodes ends up becoming Legend of the Sea Devils. I have heard that it was originally meant to be 10 episodes, but that the BBC, because they kind of wanted to get rid of Chibnall, cut it down to 8. So we know that it's 6 episodes. We know that it was supposed to be 8. COVID cut it down. It's possible that it was supposed to be 10, but the BBC cut it down to 8 because they wanted to get Jodie and Chibnall out the door faster. So I think it's another emblem of where Doctor Who was in the real world with the BBC, which was it's going nowhere, it's falling apart. Let's just put it out of its misery. And so, I mean, I wish that I could go more into more detail than I probably can, but what I'm saying is that in terms of what I think about the stories, but it's hard to isolate an individual episode because they're so intertwined. I think that Village of the Angels is probably the best episode, but it is by that point, it's on the back half of the series. So at that point, it's so intertwined with the others that there's actually very little of the episode that is, quote unquote, Village of the Angels. Because at that point, every few minutes, you're cutting away to Bell and Vinder. I certainly can say that when it first aired, I was half thinking, and as were a lot of people, that Bell and Vinder were probably going to be revealed as the Doctor's parents, and that their baby was a Thomas child. Because there's clearly some big portentous, foreshadowing to this child, and it needs to be born and such, and it needs to exist. And why? Who knows? Who cares? Maybe someone cares, but the parents care, I suppose. But it's just lost in the mess. It's possible that it was supposed to mean something more. But I figure, like Chekhov's gun, if you feature a gun in your first act, you're going to have to use it at the end. If you feature a baby during an apocalyptic time, it would make sense that the birth of the baby means something, but the baby's never born. So, okay, whatever. We never see Bell again. We see Vinder again. But it really is just, it's chaos. It's chaos. Flux is chaos. That doesn't really make any sense. It's simply events happening. I think it's unforgivable what they did with the Brigadier, frankly, revealing that he's a corporal, changing his history and revealing that he isn't the guy that starts UNIT, but he's recruited as a corporal because the Grand Serpent started UNIT. When that happened, that was another place where how I feel about the Brigadier. When you start messing with Lethbridge Stewart's history, I start to take a little more than umbrage. I start to think to myself, in a silly way, you people are unworthy. You're unfit and you're unworthy. Because now you're tampering with some of the best characters in the show, trying to remake them realign them to your own vision of who the Brigadier is. He wasn't a colonel that formed UNIT, but he was a corporal recruited by UNIT. No, I have my limits. So it crossed a few lines with me at the end, but it's such a chaos. I almost forget even this because it's just by the end it's almost just throwaway lines. By the very end, the back half, certainly the last 1 or 2 episodes are almost just a mess of throwaway lines. It's just a primordial soup at that point, and I suppose an anti-primordial soup because it's not the beginning but the ending of the show. It's a mess, and the whole Thasman, even by then Thasman hadn't really come into play. Certainly, they were trying to elevate Yaz as they were as early as the Timeless Children. That she's the greatest person who's ever lived, or something, and she's so brilliant and so amazing. She's so brilliant, amazing. There's no point in even seeing all the brilliant and amazing things that we never get to see. So it's and Dan, of course, even by that point, it's just almost reduced to just the mouthpiece saying how brilliant and wonderful Yaz is. When they spend like 3 or 4 years together. Cue Big Finish for another audio series. I can guarantee you to keep that. That's how they'll try to bring Dan back, John Bishop back into the role. But yeah, it's a sad situation. You mentioned the specials. I think we could, as part of the same thing. I think, as I said and I mentioned before, It's possible, from what I understand, that Legend of the Sea Devils was meant to be one of the Flux episodes. Look, by this point, I mean, Eve the Daleks is an interesting story, but again, very limited in its scope and with some very strange characters. Legend of the Sea Devils should never have been, not necessarily released, but it should be made, but it should never have been released as it was. The editing, it's clear that there's a larger story there. It's a special, for goodness sakes. It ends up being shorter than a regular length episode. So it's clear there's a lot of stuff cut out. It makes me wonder, why was it cut and what would the original story have been? It's very clear that it was made during COVID. So it's very clear that those specials are made during COVID. Eve of the Daleks, very clear it was made during COVID. Legend of the Sea Devils, agonizingly clear it was made during COVID. And it's at the point where it's so clear that it should never have been made, in my opinion. Not when you're trying to do a pirate story and you don't have pirates. Power of the Doctor, I think you summed a lot of the things. It really showed that Jodie Whittaker at the end, either by her own choice or maybe the BBC's choice, it's clear that it's almost like they were just pushing them out the door. It's almost, and it seems so unfair. Despite all my feelings about the Doctor and Chibnall, Jodie and Chibnall, it really feels like they were being pushed out the door in their own era. It really feels like the BBC saying the party's over, get out, done. We've got David coming back. I think it's going to be great. There's a golden age ahead, and you people are garbage. It's terrible. She almost, like in the middle of the episode, doesn't even get to act in her own farewell episode. She should have been, you're right. She should have been the master. She should have played the master as the evil Doctor. Absolutely. Instead, we get Sacha Dhawan playing the evil Doctor. And it's like, it's a slap in the face. If I'm going to be very frank, I think that the Power of the Doctor is in many ways a slap in the face of Jodie Whittaker. She doesn't even get a decent meaning of regeneration. Even in the visuals, when that energy beam, when the Master fires that energy beam, and that thing hits her, if you actually watch frame by frame, it never even hits her. The visuals aren't even clear. She's not hitting the chest or hitting the face. It's like, bam, oh, she's rolling and the beams, you know what I mean? It doesn't even create a compelling visual of why she regenerates. The beam misses her, for goodness sakes. She's just knocked out. There's not even a scorch mark on her body. There's no reason for her to regenerate, but the BBC wanted her gone. And that's the sad thing. And at the end, not without blame, because I don't think that, Jodie perhaps was always the best fit for the role, or certainly she wasn't used and utilized well almost from the beginning. Certainly, I think I don't know if you could pinpoint a point where she's used poorly and onwards. Maybe series 12. Probably. If I were to make a point, if I'm going to be honest and say the point at which I think that she wasn't used well, and then and her era really never recovered. Maybe Arachnids in the UK, where she just passively doesn't react to Robinson's killing of the spider. Had she reacted, and had they set a pattern of how she reacts with righteous indignation, I think it would be a bit of a different story, because she has no reaction. And even when Robinson comes back, they don't mention it. I think that I really feel that there were a lot of fundamental flaws to her character. Even so, how she's treated at the end and how she's almost made absent in her final episode is a real disservice to the actress. It really shows me that the BBC had lost faith. But what's worse is that they felt that they were slapping themselves on the back, thinking, we've got a better actor coming. Don't worry. No, thanks, Jodie. That's fine. But we got David Tennant coming. We're covered. Thank you. No, we know how that turned out. So I take, again, some pretty deep umbrage towards how they treated her at the end. And that show, and I'm glad, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm going to run and buy her audios, but I am glad that she's getting audios. And I'm thinking to myself, if Big Finish can, these days give us something like Death World, which is essentially another version of the Three Doctors, or the Ark, or Return of the Cybermen, and essentially go into alternate versions of existing stories. I personally think, what's stopping you from giving us an alternate version of Power of the Doctor? Give Jodie a better final story. Seriously, give her a better story. You've given Colin a better maybe regeneration story. You've given Sylvester maybe a worse one, but you've given them regeneration stories. Give alternatives. Give us an alternative where we can say, Jodie, that's the way that you are the Doctor that should have. And you got the ending you deserve, because I really think that she deserves a better ending than that almost an exile, frankly. The Power of the Doctor feels like it's like a banishment exile for her Doctor, and that really, boils my blood.
Yeah, I have to agree on that one because, and in regards to, of course, Big Finish, she did have her first audio, Vampire Weekend, and it's decent. It's decent. I may not be her target audience. I'm not saying it has a specific demographic, but I went into that audio saying I want to see what you can do. All right. I think this really was for people that already liked the Whittaker era. I'm not saying it's like you can clearly smell the Whittaker era coming off the audio, but I'm saying is like, you have certain expectations going in. I think by default, you do have to sort of go in liking the era it came from. Or if you have no experience with it at all. I think I listened to Omega and Spare Parts before I really consumed the Fifth Doctor's era. I'd seen Earthshock. That was pretty much it before I listened to the audios for the Fifth Doctor. And same for a lot of classic Doctors, really. So technically, you could say my exposure to classic Doctors was really from Big Finish. Primarily just because, a lot of releases were not available, and finding the order for anything was terrible.
Gosh.
But then, of course, once I realized, what, I like Classic Who, I might as well watch it. BritBox was a thing, and yeah, that's how we got here. When I think of the 13th Doctor, I think of a character that feels she has to defend herself when most people aren't bringing it up. And the people that do, you're just never going to win them over anyway. So really, you want to focus on the people that want to give you the shot. I always talk about that scene when she tells Stephen Fry's character, I've had an upgrade. I'm like, you could have made that sound goofier. Or even actually, I think the funny thing would be if the Doctor just sort of never brings it up, or like it's not about haircut. Because from Stephen Fry's logic, if he's reading the file on the Doctor, then he knows the Doctor's always been a man. How was I supposed to know? So I don't quite get that idea there. You do have in looking at say the 13th Doctor and Graham, and even the 13th Doctor and Dan. You do have a sort of 13 and Dan feels like a return to of your 11 and Rory. But with 13 and Graham, it almost feels like it's trying an almost Hartnell and Chesterton vibe.
Yeah.
Because Graham is really the only one that actually starts to question the Doctor, not in a sort of condescending way. He's trying to understand what's going on here. But again, it feels like the era always feels it needs to defend itself. And as I said earlier, look, winning is all the defense you need. You turn on a solid episode, and then people have to realize maybe there is some problem with me. I wouldn't say there's an inherently 100% solid episode, but no era has 100% solid episode.
Yeah.
There's always something that a viewer you know what? This was close. 100% is kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Genesis of the Daleks could use some work in some places. I would like to see more of Skaro. The Seventh Doctor's era needed to finish. The Second Doctor's era needed episodes not to be thrown in the incinerator. We needed more sword fights. I will die on that hill. More Third Doctor sword fighting. Bring it back.
Listen to the final game.
Yeah, there we go. More sword fighting action in Doctor Who in general. All right, not I would have given the Whittaker era 100 points if she had a sword fight, like a legitimate. No one thinks she can do it, and then all of a sudden she's just going full Errol Flynn, and I think the fans would have loved that. The concept of fam, I think, was annoying to people, me included, because it felt so forced. And not the sort of fun force where the 11th Doctor tries to be cool and he's bad at it. Because I relate to that on so many levels.
Well, I think you're cool, but I understand. I won't take it
Yeah.
as that.
It's sort of like she's trying to make them her family, and in some ways, that sort of found family aspect is trying to work. Ryan having lost his grandmother, Graham by extension his wife. Yaz, I think they're trying to sell the idea that she's supposed to be an outsider in her family, but that never comes up. It's like they're just not like you, but they still talk to you.
Oh, I will absolutely agree with you, because had they been dismissive of her in Reactions in the UK or other episodes, had her parents been dismissive or cold, then I can understand. But her father is very supportive of her. It actually, I will simply say that's first scene where you see Yaz with her family, and the way she's talking about it, I thought my family was weird. And then you meet them, and they seem like a completely normal, almost boringly normal family. But Yaz comes out the loser in that scene, because there's that moment where her father says to her, Yaz, you're doing great things. You've gone to school. You've got your degree. You're a police officer, she says. And it's like, what's the point of talking back and kind of being disrespectful to your father and taking the gender neutral version of that word? Do you not like that? And yet that could reveal a lot more. Does she feel like she's an outsider because she's a lesbian? It wasn't yet there. Does she feel like she's an outsider because her father doesn't support her? Clearly he supports her. So does she feel that being a policewoman's not as interesting as being an officer? Could that imply that she wants to, as it ties to the first episode, be more advanced and in her career already, almost by default, because she's a police officer? Who knows? Who cares? But that's almost one of the statements of the Whittaker era. What does this mean? Well, who knows? Who cares? What I'm saying is that you're absolutely right. Yes, the more we saw of her, the more we delved into her, and we got more. You like her more when she is the background cipher character. When you get to know her more, it's like, man, shows respect for father.
I think it's made worse because every time we reveal something that might be interesting about Yaz, it's never revisited again.
No.
Because then it sort of goes back to her feelings for the Doctor. I'm like, this just doesn't feel that interesting. Then all of a sudden she has notes on how to pilot the TARDIS. I'm like, hold on, this hasn't been earned. No. TARDIS piloting skills.
Well, more than piloting skills, expert navigational skills. She owns the TARDIS. Like you said, when Jodie wakes up, and again, unearned, all these major things are happening while Jodie's asleep on the floor, and Power of the Doctor, which is, where did everybody go? I took them home. Oh, did you? Yes. How did you take them home? Well, where's that maneuver she does where she pilots the TARDIS, flips it on its side so they can all fall inside through the open doors?
I thought to myself, weird was Ace was right there.
Yeah.
Like, if you tell me, like, no one would have doubted that Ace can pilot the TARDIS. Yeah. Big Fish fans be like, yeah, she could have parallel parked that thing. Tegan has helped out with the TARDIS.
Tegan has that wonderful emotional scene during Time Flight where she's reduced to tears trying to figure out how to operate the TARDIS, and she's just pressing button after button, flipping switch, turning dial. She's melting until she finally gets it operating, which makes that next scene in The King's Demon a subtle but very satisfying payoff when she manages to figure out how to initiate dematerialization, when she knows how to do dematerialization. That's like, yes, you earned it. Yes? Well, thanks for being here, honey. You don't get an ice cream.
There was Billy Pipe. Well, Rose never actually piloted the TARDIS, but she was like, the Doctor let her, like, okay, so press this button. What if I press that one? Oh, then you just blew us up. It's a fun bit. It's a fun little bit. River's reasoning is because she was, I guess, a child of the TARDIS. Didn't quite make sense. No. I get what Moffat was trying to say. I just don't think it worked that way. I think he should have played up with the telepathic circuits bit for that one to sort of explain that better. But whatever.
It's a tangent, as you say, but I will simply say I think at that point, when it comes to anything River song, I think Moffat just expects you to laugh and clap and call and remind him how brilliant he is. there are a lot of things I could say about, as much as I could say about Chimmel, there are a lot of things I could say about Moffat and RTD2. No one's perfect. They have their flaws.
We had Susan's never. I don't think Susan ever piloted the TARDIS.
No, but she knows how. She knows how.
Yeah. Romana goes without saying.
Of course, yes.
Nissa
can, at least by the Earthshock era, she knows its functions.
Mhm.
Adric certainly could figure certain things out and probably get it wrong. Nissa, I think, is one of the few that probably, given time, could. Well, more than given time. I think that given time, Tegan knows which switches to pull to pilot the TARDIS. I think that Nissa could probably, in given time, know some of the basics. Mel could figure some stuff out too.
Charlie was able to remember where the fast return switch was.
Yes.
Which, to be fair, considering how like the TARDIS console does not look user friendly, I consider that a win in itself.
That one.
It's never looked user friendly, except maybe like the first Doctor's one. Well, okay, I can see some of these buttons.
You can see
but later ones like
saying so.
Like the Ninth Doctor. First of all, you can barely see in the Ninth Doctor's TARDIS.
No,
I don't know anyone can find anything. The 10th Doctor. First of all, that thing's falling apart. I love 11, but his first TARDIS interior, I'm like, I don't know. This doesn't look like a button.
No, it depends on the. You're right. It depends on the era. I think Zoe could probably thinks that she probably could pilot the TARDIS better than Doctor.
11 and 12's TARDIS looks a bit too professional, like it's saying you need to have a degree. I can probably find the door handle.
I'll tell you who I wish we could have seen pilot the TARDIS, at least her reaction to it. Although she gets to see the console, is Liz Shaw. Goodness, I would have loved to see. I love the character of Liz Shaw.
She would have read the manual.
That she didn't continue. Well, it is a tragedy that we never got to see more of her and more of her. I mean, it's thankfully she got to see the TARDIS console room, the console itself. I would have loved to see her absolutely just trying to figure it out and making an intuitive thing and getting it wrong, but you know that she would be saying, well, and then just trying. That's what I'd love to see. But yes, oh yes, you and your suddenly available notes.
It deprives the audience of that story, of that payoff. Like, I would like to see her, like, she was like, maybe a bit hesitant.
Yeah.
To pilot the TARDIS, and the dog's like, "Would you like to try?" And she's like, "I'm sure." And then, of course, by the end of it, you see her like, even because she's going to be in the background a bit. Since some episodes have the camera sort of focus on her, like watching her pilot the TARDIS, and so like, and then like push comes to shove, she takes initiative and fumbles through a safe dematerialization, and the Doctor goes, "You almost did it perfectly." That would have been
the best setup. She's watching, she's checking, and that would have justified her being in the background. You're absolutely right. And then she tries and she fails. She would fail. That would be true. That would be true to, and I think that would perhaps be true. Teach her the lesson, which is, hey, it didn't work, but you're getting there. You're trying, and that's the way that you live your life. Don't try to, grasp to become the chief. A commissioner over in the UK is called a chief constable. Don't try to think that you're worthy and ready to be the chief constable on day one, but you are ready to be the constable. It's the irony. The lowest rank and the highest rank have the same name: constable, chief constable. You are a constable. You are ready to be that constable. Now you keep going until you're the next and the next. But instead, there's no training. There's no there's no build up. There's no journey. It's just simply. It really is just as simple as pulls out notes that we've never seen her doing. Had we seen her taking notes throughout those years, that would be better. But she pulls out the notes in a storage area that we've never seen, and the payoff is that she can pilot the TARDIS better than any Doctor ever has. That's the worst kind of. I don't even know what to. That's the worst kind of pandering to your own script, which is, well, the script requires this. And will pander the audience that it's the worst type of propping, unearned popularization, self-service, which is, the script needs someone to pilot the TARDIS. Okay, Yaz can pilot the TARDIS because she's the best person ever. Yeah, they barely say that she's the best person ever. For goodness sakes, when she tried to actually try to assert herself as a police officer in Series 12 on 2 occasions, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror and Fugitive of the Judoon, someone else or circumstances does it better than her. Edison is a better police officer, so to speak, than her. The Judoon take her away from having her big moment. They teleport her away. She's a comedy of unearned errors. Tragedy of unearned errors, and then suddenly at the very end she can pilot the TARDIS like an expert. It does further, that type of stuff just does further damage to the character, and therefore you almost feel, whereas I feel that Jodie was pushed out and slapped in the face as she went. I don't want her slapped in the face, but it almost feels like, you don't even get a voice saying goodbye. Why am I supposed to believe you can pilot the TARDIS? Bye. Don't say goodbye back. Just goodbye.
When I think of the Whittaker era, I think a couple words come to mind. Unearned, undisciplined, moral grandstanding, poorly thought out. But at the same time, I can't help but admire the attempt to sort of reinvent the show. Big ideas that don't quite have the payoff. Trying to bring back the 3 companions, I think you'd have to bring back 2-parters to really make 3 companions work. You'd also have to accept, hey, 3 companions can't be in every episode. Okay? Ghost Monument, we don't need Yaz. All right. Demons of the Punjab, we don't need Ryan. All right. Rosa, we don't need Yaz. Arrakis in the UK, we don't need Graham.
There's a school of thought that I have heard several people, at least more, I think 2 or 3 people say that it would have been probably a better model. What you're suggesting is that if you had rolling companions, you have all the companions that you end up having on screen, but the Doctor takes 1 or 2 and in different combinations in each episode that fit then their roles as you're indicating. Yaz doesn't need to be in Rosens, and Ryan doesn't need to be in Demons of the Punjab. Well, just have those characters be there. They come back and forth. Some mechanism, some reason that she kind of comes back and forth as that's the base. A little bit, and that's not to be complicated. It's what RTD was doing to a certain extent during the Eccleston and early Tennant years with the Powell estate families, Rose and Mickey and such.
It's weirder because this, like, season 1 is supposed to have this sort of like, hey, we're in Sheffield and they have jobs and we're supposed to accept the fact that Yaz can just take all this time off and Ryan can take all this time off, but then the next season Ryan has a friend that needs a lot of extra attention from him and his other friends, and so we're just sort of not there. Like, let's say, for example, if Ryan's friend had killed himself, sadly, Ryan would have never forgiven himself if he couldn't have been there. But I also would have made some other changes. Like, I would have had Ghost Monument be, we see the TARDIS, but we don't get it, and have everything else be a sort of, even with just like a vortex manipulator. Have it be that the Doctor's tracing the TARDIS's signal.
That's something else I
different planets and times. Ending with the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos. I hate that name so much. To find the TARDIS that being used by Tim Shaw as like a battery.
That's exactly
what was being done.
No, that plot line is also something that I've heard before, in the sense that from very smart people. So you're one of them. Is the idea that Series 11 should have been some kind of journey through time and space, episodic along the way, but serialized in the sense that they're trying to find the TARDIS, and you're getting piece by piece. Maybe there's some equipment or something that leads you to the TARDIS, and then there's the big reveal of what the TARDIS looks like, or whatever. It's just the Doctor discovering herself along the way. That would have been a very nice, and with the reduced episode count down to 10, it makes it a little more manageable. Instead, she just gets the Ghost Monument back. She gets the episode back at the end of episode 2, and then you can't even see what really the TARDIS looks like on the interior. So yeah, it's I will say this: I even heard from one person who said that what they had heard was going to be one of that was going to be the plot line, perhaps, but also that now, I don't know if this is true or not, but one person said to me that you would have actually seen, and this is the irony because you kind of see this at the end of Flux, that there were actually 3 different Jodies in 3 different time zones, and that you would have gone between, you weren't sure which was which, and such, trying to find the TARDIS. So somehow they're combined in the end. You get 3 different Doctors at the end of Flux. I wouldn't be surprised, therefore, if what you were hearing, that was an idea that maybe Chibnall had, and maybe somehow got thrown out there and was exposed to the public somehow. That was going to be in Series 11, but it wasn't used until the end of Series 13, when at that point it's already just such a mess. So yeah.
Yeah. For Spyfall in itself, or like season 12 in itself, there needs to be more through lines, sort of connecting threads together. The fact that the Doctor seems kind of uninterested until Can You Hear Me, where we maybe get an idea that she's not quite, that she is possibly dealing or investigating what happened on Gallifrey. But even then, it just sort of feels like she's just not hanging around.
It seems casual, because when you talk about missed opportunities. I think Can You Hear Me was one of the big ones, because for a short time we get to see Jodie on her own. And not with one companion, but just with no one. And they talk about it, but we never see it. We finally get to see it. It's the one time we get to see it happen. And the way she's dealing with it, had she become, okay, bye, Pam, whatever, and then as soon as it closed door, she face turns stone, and she turns to TARDIS, and you see this other side. Instead, she's just the same kind of whack, like, oh, where should I go? What do you guys think? I'm doing it again. And she's still in that silly, scatterbrained, whacking, not sure what she's doing, no real plan mode, when she should be doing something, because they've said she is going to Gallifrey all the time. She acts very different. We should have seen that. Instead, she's just still like, what do you guys? You're not there. Oh, I'm not alone. They couldn't. It's almost if they just didn't have the confidence and the courage to stretch Jodie beyond what we were seeing on screen. That's why I think, if I'm very honest, I don't really expect Big Finish to explore other sides to Jodie's character, because it almost feels like there are no other sides to her character, except the one side that I mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, that even the writers, even when they write it, her cold side, don't seem to recognize it exists.
It reminds me a bit of that video you and I saw of Molly and the Old Man, when she did her video on Chibnall's Doctor, and she said that it was incredibly sexist, and she was coming from the perspective as a woman, like, this Doctor is indecisive. She seems to be asking for permission if things are going well, and she said, like, these are not inherently masculine traits to be sure of yourself. And I've always sort of said, like, there are so many other takes I'd have liked to have seen from this Doctor. She could have been like this sort of soccer mom / genius scientist. Like, I think that would have been fun to see. Like, she actually has juice boxes for them, but at the same time, she's like, just like, imagine she like dismantles a Dalek with a juice box. It would have been brilliant and so over the top cheesy. Or even if she dressed like a first grade teacher. At times, like, and people are like, well, it's sex, but it's also fun. Have you seen how some first grade teachers dress? It's some of the coolest things ever, because they're entertaining kids. Like, people keep saying Doctor Who's for kids. Well, then own up to it. Embrace it. Have her earrings be funny. Stop having her try to look conventionally cool in possibly the dumbest costume in Doctor Who ever, until we get to Gatwa's rotating menagerie of clothes. It's just like, there are so many ways I want to take the 13th Doctor in. I'd like to see her moments when imagine if she's actually not happy all the time. But she wants to be happy, because if you think about it, her previous incarnation had just recently agreed to regenerate. All right, you kind of want to put on a hat. You don't want to think about the fact that, oh, I really shouldn't be here, and I almost wasn't here because I was in that dark a place, and then to find out, oh, my homeworld's been even more, like, to be so frustrated to see Gallifrey destroyed after everything you went through to bring it back. Can You Hear Me even fails because there's actually basically a cosmic entity here. What if the entity knew about the timeless child? What if that's how the Doctor found out about it? Like, oh, they might know. How did the Doctor find out about Carvanista? Like, how did when was the Doctor able to go through her timeline to find that out? I'm ignoring the fact that on Trenslow we see the Doctor's timeline.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna hammer home. Well, it wasn't in an era when it didn't exist, so therefore it didn't exist. It's not how that works. Or you talked about it, the watch that goes into the TARDIS. I'm like, yeah, the reason it's going in there is because Chibnall had no plans on revealing past incarnations of the Doctor. It was just a fugitive Doctor, which was all that ever needed to be done. All right, no one's gonna pick that watch up. It's gonna be. It's not even gonna be destroyed. It'll just not be talked about because there's no point in talking about it. A bunch of hidden incarnations that can't do or say anything. Because no one wants to go back to Division, because Division makes no sense. Where was Division during the Time War? What was the plan there? You tell me that the Time War was a CIA op? Oh wait, it's not a CIA op. You got rid of the Celestial Intervention Agency. Somehow you made a group worse than the Celestial Intervention Agency. And I listened to Big Finish. You know how hard to make a group worse than the CIA?
I think it shows. I think that it really just shows that by the time you get to the Whittaker era, in many ways, it shows what happens when a really great show that deserves to last a long time outlives its usefulness, or outlives its life, so to speak, and it's just existing afterwards. And I think to a certain extent, this is what happens. It's a slow decline. It doesn't happen all at once, but it's just the decline of a show that's no longer living, it's existing, and it just dissolves into chaos. And a chaos that its own creators, the BBC, really drops down the memory hole, drops into a pocket watch and drops down the memory hole. I bet there are people at the BBC that wish that they could just forget that Jodie Whittaker even exists, which is unfortunate because I don't wholly disagree, but I can't bring myself to support such an idea. It's sad.
So let's wrap her up. Because this has been a while. This is going to be at least 3 parts. I'm going to have to make into a video, which is fine. So let's talk about the best of this, because I think you can already figure out what the worst is. I'm not going to do that for this one, because I think we've hammered home our problems with it for a very long period. If you stuck around for this, which you are braver than I am, and I made the video. But we're going to talk about some good parts of the Whittaker era. The Woman Who Fell to Earth, as I said, is not a perfect first episode. I would still say the best first episode for New Who is still the 11th Hour. But I can't be trusted. It's the 11th Doctor episode. I let Matt Smith get away with just about murder. Demons of the Punjab is still really good, still holds up. Unless you're a Yaz fan, I don't know what to tell you. Resolution of the Daleks. There's some slight problems I have with the 13th Doctor's interactions with Ryan's dad, because I don't feel it's her place.
Yeah.
Or at least it's a bit too preachy for what they're trying to do. It really just has to be stuck to Ryan, Graham, and I think his name's Brian. Spyfall Part 1 and 2, despite its problems, is still relatively solid. The ending is really great. Sacha Dhawan turns out a great performance, especially at the end for his master. Bit too over the top, but if you really liked him, the master being crazy during the Sim era, then you're gonna love Dhawan's master. That's all there is to it. If you don't like Crazy Master, you're not gonna really like Dhawan's master. Fugitive of the Jadoon is because Joe Martin, I think, turned out a great performance as the Doctor. Jadoon are always fun. It's a missed opportunity itself, but if we discredit every episode of the Whittaker era being a missed opportunity, there's nothing good about the Whittaker era. Praxeus, because it was educational. It was a better Orphan 55.
Yeah.
Haunting of the Villa Diodati. I keep adding the. There's no the in that title. Lone Cyberman, fun idea. One of Jodie's best performances is a little scene at the end when she talks about how normally this group is equal, but sometimes it's mountainous with me at the top. It's a great scene for her. I'm all for moments when the Doctor, whoever's playing the Doctor can act, or when can get some moments to sort of brush off the acting skills. Ascension of the Cybermen has some good Cyberman horror moments, which I think always gets a bit underplayed. Revolution of the Daleks is nothing but a missed opportunity. I just want to say that because technically, a Dalek as an automaton, as a private police force, is not inherently a bad idea. And not Donald Trump does not know what a Dalek is. So he's technically blameless for this. Halloween Apocalypse, War of the Centaurans, Once Upon Time, it's a stupid name. Village of the Angels. I would say these 4 episodes are probably the best part about the Flux era in itself. A lot of great mystery. Santarha is always good. Visually, I think Once Upon a Time is great. Village of the Angels, Professor Jericho, save us all. Eve of the Daleks has a great moment where Dan feels more like the Doctor than the Doctor versus the Daleks.
Yeah.
Power of the Doctor, despite my issues with Jodie being underused, is one part fun because of, I don't care what anyone says, Dewan dancing as Rasputin is so over the top cheesy, and of course the Daleks and the Cybermen looking at you like, is this what we're doing? Is this what we're doing? Okay, whatevs. Again, seeing Ace and Tegan there is always great. Sadly, we get the worst version of Unit, this giant building. I just don't do it again. Oh wait, they will do it again. Graham and Ace interacting together was, I didn't know I needed to see that, but it was fun. Graham creating a support group of people that knew the Doctor was fun, mostly because we got to see William Russell, which was great, and I gave that episode such a big pass because of it. And of course, the scene when the Doctor's inside her mind and she sees all the other Doctors there in robes, except for the 8th Doctor. I don't wear robes.
Yeah,
I can wear what I want.
nice.
These are great scenes, and anytime David Bradley can sort of cement himself as the first Doctor, I felt was great. They were a bit much, and like, you were doing great, like, that's not something the Doctor would say. No one's more critical of the Doctor than all of their past incarnations. All right, no one. But granted, this was a low moment, so I can give that one a pass. Like, you gotta perk yourself up a bit. If you want to see a better version of that, I would recommend listening to Zagreus. Get comfortable. Zagreus is not for the faint of heart, but it's a great moment when a bunch of the Doctors are together inside the Doctor's mind. It's a good one. But yeah, actually, you could view some of the ideas here as almost a poor man's tribute to Zagreus.
Yeah.
And even Neverland, but Neverland is like really, really good. A bit confusing in some places. But yeah, we're getting off topic. So yeah, that was the Whittaker era. I'm not blind to the fact that we sounded very negative.
Yeah.
For this, but as Chris and I both agreed on, Jodie was someone's first Doctor. She got them into Doctor Who. She is the Doctor, whether you or I or anyone likes it or not. I'm indifferent to it at this point. She was. She's not my least favorite incarnation. You'll be surprised who my least favorite incarnation is. Chris knows. He won't tell you just yet. You'll see. You'll see. Some of you will be surprised. Those of you that know me shouldn't be surprised. But again, she was someone's first Doctor. She got people in the Doctor Who. She did her job. Maybe years down the line, we'll find out more about it. I want her Doctor to succeed. I hope she has a home on Big Finish. I hope, because I'm putting out the money for these. So if anyone has a right to criticize now, I now know how the British feel about paying a tax for their television. Throw my TV in the harbor right now. But anyway, that is enough. You don't know how late it is, people. You don't know how late it is. You know how late this video is. because I'm pretty sure I promised this a while ago. No, I didn't promise you people anything. That's right. You just know you'll get it when you get it. But anyway, thank you for sticking with us. This is probably going to be 2 to 3 parts, maybe. So anyway, you won't know what Chris looks like, by the way, if you don't already know him, because this will mostly just be an image of text. Because Chris and I do not look like very photogenic right now.
No.
I don't. I refuse to be on screen without my glasses. But that's enough of that. So anyway, if you are new to Bug Thinking, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, smash the thumbs up button. And what do you guys think of the Whittaker era? I'm probably going to post this question on a couple different ones. I might break this down season by season. I think that'll be easier for everybody. Leave your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll catch you all later. Hey, maybe Chris will be with me for the Doctor Who tier list. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.
That's the only sad thing. I want to know what happens next. Right then. Doctor whoever I'm about to be. Tag. You're it.
I know these teeth.